Greetings and welcome to the ROI Clear podcast. My name is Ray Hightower, and today we are fortunate to have as our guest Mr. Jens Nielsen. Jens is the principal of Open Doors Capital, as well as the co-founder and managing member of Incremental Equity Partners. He's based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and he hails here in the USA, or came to the USA from Denmark. We're going to talk to him about all of that. He's a very successful multifamily real estate investor. He's a mentor. He's a performance coach. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Jens Nielsen. Welcome, Jens.
Hey, thanks, Ray. I'm excited about being on this call today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, yeah, we're looking forward to it here, and we're glad to have you here as well. To kick us off, why don't you give us an elevator pitch? And for those who are new to the ROI Clear podcast, Jens is on an elevator with someone he wants to influence. So Jens, what would you say to that person in the course of an elevator ride?
Yeah, I would say that real estate investing is one way to diversify your portfolio, get your money out of Wall Street and get it onto Main Street, invest where it really makes a difference, improving neighborhoods, improving people's tenants' lives, and getting your money to a place where it can keep pace with inflation. It can help you mitigate tax issues and just give you some cash return along the way. That's what I would tell people.
Wonderful. And then, of course, that pulls them in and they want to talk to you further about that. And one of the things I've noticed in doing the research about you in preparing for this interview, of course, I know you, we met through the Warrior program, through Radcliffe's Warrior program, but in getting to know you and watching you and studying some of the things that you have out there on the internet, you're very service oriented. Like one of the things you have on your LinkedIn profile, you say, and I'll quote, "I help people live their lives to the fullest through multifamily real estate investing." Can you share a little bit with our audience? What does that mean to you, and how did you evolve into that philosophy?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think, I have a 27-year IT career, right? And for many, many years, it was all about how could I make money for myself and how could I be, kind of the best in this whole zero-sum game. I was also a competitive cyclist for many, many years, and that was also a zero-sum game, right? Hey, I would win, somebody else would lose, or vice versa. But the turning point for me was really, it was actually in 2018, May of 2018. I had started investing in real estate, but I wasn't really taking it incredibly seriously. I was doing a little bit here and there. And I had this terrible crash on my mountain bike, racing my bike in Colorado. Ended up in the ICU with a lacerated kidney, with a couple of broken vertebrae. And I'm in the ICU and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? This could have been the end, right? This could have been a terrible, I could have, expired, or a terrible,
Mm-hmm.
kind of ongoing disability. And at that point, I was like, wow, once I had the will to like recover and get through this. But I said, once I get through this, I need to think about ways that I can be living, where I can live a life of connection, of sharing, of giving back and really collaborating with people. So I wouldn't say it was a religious experience, but it was definitely an experience of, hey, it's time for me to step up and just contribute much more than I had in the past, right? So that's the point. I hired my own coaches. A year later, I became a high performance coach because I really feel like giving back, both from the coaching side and also from the real estate side, is so important for me. So I don't know if you knew that story, Ray, but that was really kind of my turning point in my life about 6 years ago.
I never knew that story. That is a harrowing experience for anyone. And there's some people who would have been pushed away from doing anything because of that, but you took that and turned it into something positive.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was like, hey, have I mattered? Have I loved? Have I connected? Have I, given and contributed? And the answers that I kind of saw weren't I didn't like what I heard, right? And that's really when I stepped back and said, okay, it's time to change. And that's really where the big shift was in my life.
Goodness. Well, I'm glad you're healthy now, and you're still an active cyclist, and yeah.
Yeah, I was just on the trainer this morning for an hour. That was inside, so usually don't fall off the bike when you're
Yeah,
running
yeah, yeah,
inside,
yeah, yeah.
So
Usually that's how it works. Yeah, yeah. And then you mentioned your career in IT. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, I mean, so, I came from overseas. I was born and raised in Denmark, came to the US in 1996 and did like everybody else, right? Got my undergrad, my graduate degree in computer science and worked for different companies from, smaller startups to large organization, even in Indian tribe and a local government. And,
Mm,
it was always good, it was good income, but it also was, I didn't have the freedom. I didn't have the time to travel back to visit my family back home in Denmark. And I was kind of, as I was getting old, I was like, wow, time is running out. And if I want to reconnect with my family, if I want to have this freedom, then IT is not going to continue to serve me. And also, it changes so quickly. It's fine when you're in your 20s and 30s, you can keep up with it. But once you're in your 40s and
yeah.
50s, it's like, oh man, I don't want to change every 6 months. And it becomes a lot harder. So that was kind of some of the impetus for this when going down the real estate path.
Right. There it is. That's something else we have in common. I also have an IT background. I ran an IT company for a couple of decades in Chicago. So you and I both had a multi-decade IT career. And you're right. It's a lot of fun solving the problems, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, you feel like a hero every time you solve an IT problem or fix something, right? And that's
Yes.
that's great. But it also, in the long run, it doesn't really, it's just another problem after another problem, and you don't really always feel like you're making the progress you need to make.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And you're not building up equity as you are with your real estate career.
Unless it's your own company, which it never was, right? You're absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And even if it's your own company, in my case, when I think about it, I really created a job for myself. I didn't build up the level of equity I could have done in real estate, but it's fine. That's not a complaint. As you and I just shared, it's a lot of fun to solve those problems, and you're always a hero when you solve those problems. So that feels good too.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in your IT career, you're doing this for multiple decades. This is after you've come to the United States from Denmark. Clearly, you're very service oriented. You'd like to help people. When did you decide to start exploring real estate? I mean, you mentioned your experience in the ICU. That was a turning point. But what steps did you take next?
Yeah, so that was about 2 years into it. I really started in 2016. That's when I I actually picked up a book and I was walking my dogs and I listened to it was Brandon Turner's like How to Invest in Cash Rental Real Estate or something. And that was the turning point because at that point I was like, what I need to do something different. I didn't know what it was. Picked up that book and took my dogs on a long walk, and I came back and I was telling my wife, I was like, this is what we need to do. And she's like, okay. Bless her heart, she trusted me. And, luckily, I had, we saved a little bit of money and, imagine prices in 2016. So we were able to buy some stuff in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That was closest. I was living in Colorado at that time. That was closest to where I lived and got a couple of fourplexes and 11 unit. I was like, wow, this actually kind of makes sense. You put some money in, you fix it up, and suddenly you have cash flow. If you put a manager in place, you have cash flow. So that was kind of the
Hmm.
starting point. I didn't really think that big initially, right? That took, a couple of years, right? By the time I had that accident I talked about, I had done, you know, I think my biggest deal to date was a 38 unit joint venture, but that was as far as I
Mm.
had gotten, right? So it took, a couple of years of kind of like, dabbling in it. And then, in 18 into 19, that's really when it started taking off with, joint ventures and some bigger stuff, and then into the syndication world at that time. Needed to make a shift, how the avenue picked. And
You made that shift and made it into multifamily real estate. Uh, what made you choose multifamily over other asset classes?
so I looked around for a little bit, right? I mean, initially you kind of explore different things. I was living in a small town in Colorado and house prices were way too high, would never cash
Mm.
flow. Then I went to a couple of, other towns around there and I was like, wow, okay, I can buy a single family house and then what? Another one, and
Hmm.
another one, another one. I was like, that didn't really make sense. So I connected with, and this is one of the things, like anybody that's newer in this business, reach out to anybody who that you may know who's in it. So I called up my buddy Gates and I was like, hey, how do you do this? Like, oh, just back of the napkin, this is how you do it. And he had been investing in all kinds of stuff, mobile home parks and shopping centers and all this stuff for years and years. And he just kind of like, hey, go to Albuquerque, you won't find better values than there.
Mm,
And he connected me with a broker who has been a mentor of mine and a friend and a partner for many years now, right? So basically,
yes.
I figured out that if I was going to invest out of state, it didn't make sense to start buying single family houses. May as well start with, 4 units and above, and I've
Right.
never really looked back.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a deal story or two? Tell us a success story about it. Maybe your first deal, or maybe your first deal where you said, "That's me. I'm really proud of that." Tell us a few of those stories.
I think probably the joint venture, the 38 unit joint venture we bought in, it was literally, we bought it a month before that, the accident, or maybe even just a few weeks before my accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got a couple of, I mean, imagine this, $1.2 million for 38 units, right?
Oh boy. Oh, bargain. Yes.
Absolutely. It didn't maybe look like a bargain then because it needed some work. We put another 600 into it. But I think when it was all said and done, we were in it at 1.8 million.
Yeah.
And, it was challenging the first year, maybe 18 months, right? Because, older properties, plumbing leaks and, having to re-tenant the whole thing. And I had one friend and partner who was, co-invested with me, and he was like freaking out, like, oh my God, this is terrible. We're spending too
Mm,
much money. This is never going to work. And I was like freaking out because the first time I had any like, investors or partners. So, after a while, I said, hey, can I buy you out? Because this is not going to work. I don't need the stress. So I bought him out and, gave him a good return. He got a good return on his
mm-hmm.
money.
Mm-hmm.
But then we went in and then we refinanced it, right? This is when interest rates were in the fours or something. I can't remember. It's like
Ooh,
4%. We
wow. Yeah.
refinanced it, pulled 70% of our money out of it. So now we have, 30% left, and interest rate, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
rents are going up. I mean, you saw what happened last year. Rents are going up. We've gone through the renovations. It's a stable property now. And literally in 2023, we cash flowed 55% on our
Mm.
money left in the deal. So 55% cash on cash return on the money left in the deal. So I'm happy. My other partners are happy, but this is just, and I think a lot of people, they see, oh my God, uh, this is gonna, take a short period of time to stabilize that. No, just have a little bit of patience, right? Get through
Right.
the challenges first 1 or 2 years, and after you get through that, most of these deals tend to work out really well.
Right, right. Yeah, you definitely needed some patience. And it's funny, 38 units, 1.2 million at the time. You said it looked expensive, but in hindsight, what a bargain, right? What a bargain.
Yeah,
Even with, if I remember correctly, 1.2 million acquisition sounded like you put about 600,000 into CapEx.
yeah. So we're at $1.8 million into it, right? And
Yeah.
then, 2 years later, we've, praised that 2.5 or something, and we
Mm.
refinanced it. I can't remember exactly. I don't know what it's worth now. I haven't really looked at the NOI because
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
no interest in selling it, right? I mean, it's just it's doing well and it's cash flowing. So why? And this is, I think, a good thing about owning something as, by yourself or in JVs. You're not like necessarily pressured to get out of it in that
Right.
shorter period of time, right? It cash flows well. It's a stable asset, so I'm happy about it.
Why not do it that way? That makes so much sense. And so you can keep it indefinitely. If the
Yeah,
market
I mean,
conditions say you should sell it, you can sell it, or you can hold on to it in cash flow. Like you said, 53%, 55% cash flow right now?
yeah, last year, I mean, it was like couldn't believe it. I don't know if it's going to be this good this year. We just had some extra cash we were distributing and stuff, so it did really well.
That's a wonderful story. Now I should ask, in general, do you prefer to buy and hold, or do you prefer to buy and hold for 5 to 7 years and flip as so many syndicators do? What's your general philosophy about that?
I mean, the stuff that I own by myself, right? So we have a handful of units, me and my wife, and a couple of JVs. Yeah, I would hold for a long time. If they do well and they're cash flowing and I can't find a better place to allocate the money, why not hold on to it, right? Yeah, of
Yes.
course, there's been some other deals that were, never really cash flow that well along the way, but we can get a good sales price. I mean, you love Phoenix. I mean, we had an amazing deal we sold a year and a half ago there, right? That made a
Hmm.
tremendous amount of return to our investors, but didn't cash flow very well along the way. Yeah, stuff like that, for sure. Let's sell it, especially in the syndications, because the investors may not have infinite patience there. So
Right.
so stuff, and there's some other deals that like, well, even we can see the long term is not going to be the greatest deal in the world, so maybe we just sell and move on, right? So I think we just
Hmm.
look at deal by deal to see what's the best strategy for this specific deal.
That makes sense. So you have many options, many tools in your toolbox, and you choose the one that's appropriate for the problem you want to solve or for the objective you want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Wonderful. Now, in addition to all of your success in IT and cycling and investing in real estate, you are also a mentor and a coach. And I thought I'd ask you, tell us about the difference between a mentor and a coach. Do you is it possible to be a mentor and coach to to the same person, or do you put on one hat or the other? What's the difference? How would you compare and contrast those roles?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ray. I appreciate that. So, a mentor or a consultant is somebody who has kind of been there before, right? So, if somebody comes to me and say, "I want to learn how to invest in real estate," I said, "Okay, I can help you with the underwriting and the capital raising and due diligence, all these different things, because I've done it all. I've been there before." But if somebody comes to me and say, "How do I develop 200 units ground up?" I said, "I don't know because I've never done it, right? So I can't help
Right.
you there." So a mentor is somebody that has been there before you. And I always love to teach. I did a little bit of like side work at a community college a few years ago because I always like to
Mm.
teach. So I don't know, for some reason that's in my blood. And I think also the more if you teach other people, you have to kind of make sure you know the topic yourself, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
It's proven to be one of the best way to learn a new topic is go and teach it to somebody else, right?
Right, right.
So that's the mentoring side of it. I love that. I've done that since like early on, probably 2019 or something like that,
Yes.
because I love that. But at some point, you can only take people so far, right? They learn all the things they need to do, and then it's just a matter of them taking action. A coach, it's very different. A coach is all about eliciting options from you, from the client, right? And not
Mm.
necessarily where you have gone as the coach. You basically say, okay, Ray, what do you want? How do you want to improve your life? Like say, oh, I want more time to spend with my family. It's like, okay, what does that look like? How do you get there, right? So we basically elicit options from the client and whatever they come, because we have this, we quite often have the solutions inside of us, but as a
Hmm.
coach, you have to pull them out and help people see those solutions, see those ideas, and then put them into action. I said, okay, so you need to, leave your job in the next 3 years. Great. How are you going to get there? Is that for real estate or how, whatever that is, right? So then you start creating these options and then you help people take action towards them, right? And it's all about clarity. Are you clear on what you want? Do you have the right productivity, the right energy, the right influence, the real purpose behind the action you're taking, right? So coaching, you can continue to coach somebody forever. You can't continue to mentor them because eventually they'll know everything they need to know, right?
Right, right, right. But you can coach continuously. And would it be fair to say you personally would be in a great position to mentor someone on acquiring a 200 unit property and doing the capital raising and doing the asset management and all of that. But if they wanted to do 200 units, your example from earlier, if they wanted to develop from the ground up, from the dirt up to the finished units, 200 units, you could coach them, but you wouldn't necessarily mentor them.
It would be a challenge to mentor them because there'd be a lot of areas I wouldn't know, I
Yes.
mean, a general idea of how to do it, but I probably wouldn't be the best in that area,
Right,
right?
right. But certainly as a coach, and you're
Yeah.
extracting from them in conversations with them, you're extracting from them the next steps they need to take as a coach.
Yeah.
because they know what
And
they need to do. Yes.
yeah. And some of the clients that I worked with for years, they usually come to me for mentoring. They want to know how to invest in real estate, but then they stay for the coaching because they start seeing
Mm,
that the coaching helps them. You know, I've had quite a few people that have, left their W-2 jobs. And then they're suddenly, okay, well, how do I stay productive? What does this mean, right? Just because we quit our jobs doesn't mean that we're going to be necessarily happy. So how do we
yes.
create the happiness, the productivity, the connections that we need, right? And that's where the coaching comes in.
Got it. And there's a lot of mindset work there as well.
Oh yeah, I mean the biggest block for taking any kind of action is our lack of trust or that we can actually make it a reality, right? We just don't trust ourselves to take action. We don't have the courage, right? And we feel like not good enough and all these other things that we all struggle with as humans. And overcoming
Yes.
that, all kinds of things will happen, right?
Right. What does it say? You have this on one of your social media posts somewhere. You have Napoleon Hill's quote, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Napoleon Hill was like the first, I think, mindset mentor, first mindset coach out there. His Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we can think about it. I mean, take somebody like Elon Musk, right? Yeah,
Mm,
think what you will of him, right? He's a little
yes, yes,
eccentric, but I mean, who thinks about putting people on Mars, right? Who thinks about starting a rocket company from scratch? That's
yes,
insane. I mean, it's
yes.
never been done. Yeah, him and then Bezos and what's the guy from Virgin
Oh,
Records?
Branson, Richard
Branson.
Branson.
Yeah,
Yeah, right,
yeah.
right.
But I mean, Musk is the only one that's doing it at scale, right? I mean, who in
Yes,
the world thinks like that? Very,
yeah,
very, very few people, you know.
right.
But if you can start thinking like that, even the fact that you can go out, I mean, I've done 35 real estate deals so far.
Hmm.
If you'd asked me that in 2016, they would have said, crazy, you're crazy, Ray. That'll never happen, right? But it's just over time working with my own coaches, my own ability to think bigger and connect with the right people, it then became a reality.
What has enabled you to think bigger? I mean, you mentioned the Musk example, and I have a lot of respect for Elon Musk and the things that he does with SpaceX and Tesla and Neuralink and the Boring Company, all of these companies and all of these problems he's solving. So what is there something that our listeners can do to help themselves to think bigger? How would you respond to that
I
question?
think, the biggest thing that really helped me was surround yourself with people that are of that mindset, right?
Mm,
If the friends you hang out with are just perfectly happy in their W-2 jobs, they're not going to push you to the next level. So seek out first I would start by seeking out people that are a few steps ahead of you that can inspire you or challenge you, right? And I did that in my cycling career. It's like I gotta get around some people that's gonna kick my butt because that's going to
right.
motivate me to train harder. So get around people that are a few steps ahead of you, right? So I have, as incrementum equity, I have a partner who has been doing this for 22, 23 years. And he always like, yeah, we can make this a reality. I was like, wow, okay, yeah, let's do it. So he has helped me push forward. So I think surround yourself with people like that is a huge thing. If you don't have that, I mean, it's a little bit like a thermostat, right? You have to slowly dial up the thermostat
Mm,
and get to that next level, right? You're not going to go from 0 to 200 units in your first deal, most likely. Some people do, but you may
mhm.
have to, some incremental steps or join a team who's doing it, right? But it's just a little bit of giving the confidence, getting to that next level, right? If you're climbing a mountain, you're not going to go and climb Mount Everest first, but climb something a little bit smaller and then build from there. I think that's the key thing, and having somebody on your side that will encourage you and challenge you and push you.
Yeah. Do a little bit at a time and then grow.
You
Yeah.
know,
What would you say is this have faced in your business career?
um, I think it's easy to be, a few years ago, it was easy to be optimistic because everybody wanted to invest in real estate and all these projections around
Hmm.
rent growth and all these things, right? Then reality hit in the last year and a half, where it's a little bit more challenging, right? Or maybe we couldn't quite hit the rent growth we were hoping for. So basically, just the realities of running real estate investing through different market cycles, right? And all those, those challenges I'm sure you guys have experienced too, right? Maybe rent can't increase rent, and then damn insurance goes up by 35% and
Right. Yeah.
taxes,
Yeah.
all these other things, right? So I think just the ongoing, and I think we have to realize too, right? There's a lot of gurus out there that says, oh, buy real estate and be financially free. No, buy real estate and work your ass off for a while, right? And then eventually you will do well, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a get rich quick business. It's a get wealthy over time if you're disciplined and consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So well said. Yeah. So
Take
well
the
said.
punches too, right? Because they will come.
Oh yeah, sure, sure. We're coming towards the end of our time together, and it's going really quick. I could sit here and ask you questions for a long time, but we do want to wrap it up. We want to respect your time and the time of our listeners and everyone across the board. So as we wrap up, let me ask you a few closing questions. I find that leaders are readers. What are you reading right now, or what have you read recently that you would recommend to our audience?
Well, I have a book right next to me called The Happiness Advantage by
Hmm.
Sean Aker. Really interesting about different techniques we can implement in our daily lives to be happier, to get more done, higher productivity, connecting with people. So yeah, always reading something, and then every newsletter I write, I put something out. So The Happiness Advantage is what I'm reading right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We'll make sure we include a link to that in our show notes. Jens Nielsen, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today on the ROI Clear podcast. Thank you for being here with us.
Absolutely, Ray. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.